Okay, so I'm going to turn my timelines back on so I can see what I'm playing with. Let's take a look at this first shot. Now, this shot is terribly underexposed, and I can tell by looking at my waveform monitors that that's the case. This tint here, this bright white tint that should be blinding, it should be pushing the limits of the video, is down here around the halfway mark. All of my information is in the bottom corner of the screen, bottom quarter of the monitor here. That tells me that not only am I going to have to brighten this image, but I'm going to have to expand this. I'm going to have to add some contrast to it, and I'm going to have to add some brightness to it. So I'm going to start by working with the gain, just to bring those highlights up a bit. And I'm not going to push them all the way. Not yet, anyway. I know that I'm going to be making additional adjustments, and those additional adjustments may cause me some grief if I push it too far. Now, the midtones really need to get spread out and raised a little bit. So I'm going to work with the gamma wheel here to try and bring the midtones up. And you'll notice that the blacks are coming up as well. But the midtones aren't really spreading out like I was hoping. So I am going to go on the bottom here to this first fader. And I am going to grab my contrast. Push that up a little bit. Now you see that the entire waveform is expanding. All right, now I'm going to go back to these midtones, to this gamma, and see if I can't pull that up a little more. Now, as I've done that, my blacks have crept up on me, so I'm going to come to the lift and pull that down a little bit. I want those blacks getting towards the bottom. Again, I don't want them to actually reach zero, but they should be getting close to zero. Okay. Maybe I'll even push that midtone a little bit further up, a little bit more gamma. That means I'm going to have to pull my blacks down just a hair more. Oops. Shaky finger syndrome. Okay. So here's what it was like before. That's really flat, really not very usable. And here's what it looks like now. That's definitely an improvement. It would look better if it had been shot properly, but that is definitely an improvement, right? So if the best I have is that poor, sad, underexposed shot, at least I've got something now that's usable. It doesn't look great, but it doesn't look bad. Cool. All right. So I was able to repair or at least improve this image. And it's important to have realistic expectations. There's a limit to what you can do, but you can usually make things better. Not good, but better. So let's move over to this third shot. All right, so this is a pretty straightforward, the white balance was off situation. Now I could do this, I could go into curves and manipulate my red and my blue separately and probably come up with something useful. But this is really a great opportunity to use that temperature control, which I demonstrated earlier. So at the bottom here, I'm going to my page 2, and then I'm just going to take the temperature and start playing. And in part, I'm looking at the image. If I go too far, right, we start getting this sunburned look. But mainly, I'm kind of looking at the scopes there. All right, well, I've got it so that there's kind of an equal amount of red and green and blue, but the red and the green and the blue are not in sync, right? The green is definitely a little stronger, peaking a little bit higher than the red and the blue. This might be a case of coming over here to the faders rather than the color wheels. Now again, this is the same information that I have access to here, just a different way of looking at it. So what I could do is look at I see that the darks on my red are sticking down there a little bit farther than they ought to. So maybe here on the lift, I will compensate that by nudging the darks a little bit higher. And notice that as I do this, there is a change happening to the other two, so I need to be careful with this. But I'm just going to bring them up so they're just kind of reaching underneath that bottom 128 line. And now I want to do the same thing. My blues are hanging out down there. You know what? I'm going to reset that. I do think that the easier way to do this is going to be coming over here. So I'm going to lift my reds just a little bit. And I think I want to lift my blues just a hair. Okay. And then I'm actually going to increase the gamma on the blues. You notice how the blues are a little bit narrower. They don't reach as high in either direction as the reds or the greens. So I'm going to push the gamma on the blue up just a little bit. And then what happens if I do the offset on the blue? Okay. Now the highlights on the green are a little bit strong, so I'm going to come here to the gain, that's my highlights, and pull my greens down just a little bit. And notice again, it's affecting everything as I do this, so I'm being very subtle here. Now I've got my red, my green, and my blue close. Now they're not perfect, and they'll never be perfect, but I could spend hours noodling with this. But let's just take a look at before, after. So I've taken something that was unusably Smurf-O-Vision and turned it into something that is usable. Now, it might not match perfectly with the shot that was properly done, and what I might actually have to do is come back to this original shot. If I needed to match these, I might have to make this one a little bit off in order to match this one. But you can definitely tell that just with a little bit of manipulation there, I have taken something that wasn't usable and turned it into something usable. All right, let's take a look at this hideously overexposed shot. And looking over here, I can see that it's hideously overexposed. There's nothing in the blacks, and all the information is on the top half of the waveform there. So I'm going to go back to my circle vision because that's fun to look at. I think if I pull the offset down, right, we're just going to bring the whole image down like that. And I'll just bring it far enough down that nothing is going over the top of the monitor for the top of the scope for now. I need to bring some life back into this. So I'm going to try and pull the gamma and the lift down, my midtones and my blacks. I'm going to try and stretch those towards the bottom a little bit. It's just not accomplishing much, is it? Let's take a different approach here. Let's start by playing with the contrast. And we don't actually want to compress it, we want to expand it, but we need to bring the overall brightness down as well. And again, the offset is going to be the way to pull that down. This line across here is where the digital video went over the allowed allotment, right? There's really not any information past that. You can see some finger spikes there, but it's just blobs of white, and that really is all it'll ever be. Push the contrast a little bit harder. Okay, gain will bring my whites down a little bit, and then maybe give me an opportunity to pull the blacks further. And you can see I might need to do a little bit of work on the color. Playing with the tint control here. All right. Before, after. Before, after. Is it better? Sure, it's better. Is it good? No, it's not good. But all of this area that is solid white, that's all it will ever be, is solid white. There is no information to recover from it. The overexposed footage it's meaningless. There's not a lot I can do with this image. All right, let's take a look at our last one. Now, this shot of Diamond Head is not awful. And I do have to be a little bit careful because this is a pan, right? So I might make a change that works in one spot and not in another. But let's take a look at this part over here. Looking at my traces, I can see there's information at the bottom and information at the top, but nothing in the middle, right? There is no mid-range on this picture. So let's see what we can do about that. I'm going to start at the bottom. I'm going to try and put some blacks into this. So I'm going to take my lift and run it down. And I'm not really even looking at the picture. I'm just looking at the monitors here. Now, there's not a lot of midtones to play with here. Maybe if I push the midtones up a bit and then pull the lift back down a bit. Bring the gain down just a hair. I think that maybe contrast. I kind of want to expand this contrast, but then I'm going to pull the gain back down because I'm running off the top. No. This is a hard one. All right, I'm going to reset all this real quick. Let's take a look at this using curves. I think this might be a better way to go. I'm going to take these low end things and I'm going to bring the black part of them down, but try and add some contrast in there by pushing this up. So looking left to right, so everything that's left of this mark, I'm making darker, right? So stuff that, and there wasn't very much of it, but I'm taking a little bit of this curve, this information here, and turning it darker. But I'm trying to take some of this stuff, and this is most of what's in the mountain and the houses here, and push it a little bit. And likewise, I want to try and bring some contrast into that sky. And this is kind of a question of how hard can I push it without muddling anything else up. You see, if there's detail in those clouds, if I can get to it. Starting to get a little bit of our sky back, but we're really kind of trashing the mid-ground there. Let's see if I flatten this out a little bit. Okay. So before, after. Before, it wasn't a bad shot, but it was really flat. There was not that much detail in the sky, and there's not that much detail to the sides of the mountain. After, look, there are actually fluffy clouds in the sky, and there are actually little canyons and ravines on the mountain. So I was able to do some good to that. Now, having done everything the hard way, let me show you how to cheat. I'm going to reset this. There is an auto button here, and it will take a stab at fixing it for you. Did it do as good as I did? I think that its mountain looks better than my mountain looked, but I think that my sky looked better than its sky looked. But, now that I've done the automatic, I can still come in and noodle with it. All right. This has been a lot, and we honestly haven't gotten very far, but this gives you an idea of what can be done. An annoying amount of this is sit and play with it, and make small moves. I mean, maybe make a big move just to see what the adjustment is doing, but then just a little bit of adjustment because the next adjustment you make is going to change some of what you've already done. And this is a repetitious product. I mean, it's a repetitious process. You're going to do the same thing over and over and over again. But you can take something that wasn't perfect and make it better. That automatic feature that I showed you will automatically do the best thing it can. So if I look at my blue balance here, or my white balance here on the blue shot, and I click automatic, it's going to try and fix it. And I'm not saying it didn't do a great job, but if I compare it to the shot before it, right, these don't match. Let me reset that. These two shots obviously should look the same. They were shot in the same location at about the same time, just white balance issues. If I try just hitting the automatic on this one, it definitely makes this shot look better. Let me turn it off and on. You can definitely see this shot looks better. But if I compare it to the shot before, they don't match, right? The automatic didn't get me there. And it would actually be kind of frustrating for me to do this by hand to actually make them look the same. Let me reset that. But what I can do is I can select this shot because this is a shot I want to fix. And then I'm going to come over here and right click on my reference shot. This is the proper shot. And there's a command here, match shot to this clip. So what it's going to do is it's going to look at the color grading or the colors on the clip that is correct and try to match the second shot to it. Let's see if it works. So it has done its level best to make this shot, which this is the one that was horribly mis-white balanced, match this shot. That is much closer. It's not perfect. I may need to go in and do a little bit of tweaking by hand, but I can get a long way just working with the automatics. So Tom, why didn't you show me the automatics in the first place? Well, I want you to be able to go in and play with the things and understand what it is you're playing with. But you can get a long way just doing that. So again, this is my reference shot. If I come over here to this first shot, and remember I worked pretty hard to get this to look decent, but I'm going to reset that. Okay, so this is my underexposed shot, and this is my properly exposed shot. So I'm going to select the underexposed shot. I'm going to right click the proper shot. And again, shot match to this clip. And it's going to do its best to make this first clip look like this second clip. And it did a mighty fine job, didn't it? It probably did a better job than I did. Here's before, here's after. Okay, so that's a basic introduction to color correction. I'll probably do a couple more videos in this sequence a little bit later in the semester, maybe next week or the week after.